Hi, obviously I'm not an artist. In this vlog, I've returned to the Necron army, but not to discuss the Necrons themselves, but rather the C'tan. The C'tan in Warhammer lore are the star gods that tricked the organic Necron tier alien race into giving up their souls and forms for a body of self-repairing living metal. However, after an event known as the War in Heaven, where the now Necrons and C'tan fought and destroyed an ancient alien race known as the Old Ones, the Necrons returned the favour and betrayed the C'tan, shattering them into much less powerful but more numerous shards and then enslaving them. The Necrons now use the C'tan shards as terrifying monster soldiers in their battle against their enemies. They are armed with devastating powers and unique ancient alien weapons. The first one here is also the newest released C'tan model, the Shard of the Void Dragon, or Magladroth, who is a spectacular miniature, imposing and intimidating, and nearly impossible to kill effectively in 9th edition. However, in 10th edition, all the C'tan Shard have had their rules altered to offset the notorious durability that they had previously. The dragon is armed with a spear for both shooting and melee, and a slashing bladed tail, and the Necron equivalent of psychic powers. For painting, this was at first very intimidating, but mostly because expensive models are intimidating. Obviously I'm not an artist, and therefore the fear of doing a poor job is very real. It was broken up into several sub-assemblies, then either primed with a grey or silver spray depending on the sub-assembly, then base silver and washed black, or in the case of the dragon's swole body, blue, Dragonov Nightshade to be exact. Layers of golds and bright silvers for metallics, greys for stone detail, and finally greens for the many energy tendrils. Speaking of greens, and the obvious
blue and green should never be seen.
My voice is doing that thing again. Maybe I should see a doctor. Anyway, I couldn't get it bright enough. I was given some advice to add some white to the green, but actually settled on a bright yellow dry brush. This pushed up the vibrancy and offset the blue-green issue. Next up we have the Shard of the Nightbringer, or Azagorod, formerly the star god of death, darkness and destruction, which goes a long way to explain why he looks like the Grim Reaper in space. All sorts of issues here. Firstly, it's a fine cast resin, and prior to this I have painted and built exactly 2 minis of this type. Secondly, the instructions for building it were terrible, to the point I removed material I wasn't supposed to, and then had us fill a small cavity. This was achieved by sanding the sprue into dust and then sprinkle it into the gap and sealing it with super glue. Nightmare. Thirdly, I attached the blade of the scythe upside down, and fourthly, after painting, which was very simple, black base, dry brush and add highlights of blue, greys and whites, I did a matte varnish, and this drove the vibrancy of the black up to very high levels, giving it a shiny appearance. Despite multiple issues with this model, I'm very proud of the base. Due to the age of this model, it predates the 9th edition Necron model refresh, and therefore has the older sculpts of the canoptic scarabs crawling along the tactical rock he's perched on. This looks out of place with the rest of the army, as the scarabs on the model have a different design to the more recent releases. In my eyes, it looks like a cross between a microchip and a toaster. Using Astrogranite technical paint, I applied it over the tactical rock and scarabs, then did a wash and dry brush. Then using a scarab swarm model, I clipped it, freeing several individual scarabs from each other. I then painted them and adhered them to the tactical rock with super glue. Thirdly and lastly is the Shard of the Deceiver, or Mefrat Ran. In lore, they are the instigator of the Necron's transformation and subsequent plight. As you can see from his artwork, he resembles a jester, or DC Comics Joker character, which is apt considering his Loki-like trickster behaviour. I think I achieved a Marvel DC mashup there. This also is a fine cast resin miniature, but considerably easier to build. Painting was easier too, with a silver prime, gold base, flesh wash and silver highlights. The bindings were off-whites like khaki and creams for layers, and white stippled onto the edges. Stippling is a technique I recently adopted for cloth, robes and leatherwork. This is achieved by using a stabbing motion rather than a sweeping motion you typically use on edge highlights. The base, like that of the Nightbringers, has some features including some crystals and a Necron warrior. The crystals were base black and dry brush green for a very simple yet effective look. The Necron warrior, though, I admitted, as in the same case as the Nightbringer, it's an older sculpt and will look out of place with contemporary Necrons. I feel I may return to the base at a later date to develop it further. There are one more, well, technically two more C'tans available. Starting with the Transcendent C'tan, this is a collection of dozens to hundreds of shards combined, and therefore, until recently, had selectable powers on the tabletop. Again, with the advent of 10th edition, it's now replaced with a useful teleport move. The model is different. I can't say I like it. Its crackling energy tendrils make it look like it's been dipped in slime. Ha ha ha! Take that, Mark! Interestingly, this model comes with this ludicrous massive obelisk, which acts as the C'tan's prison, or if you're that way inclined, a Pokeball. Lastly, and technically C'tan usable in the game, is the Burning One, or Nyadra Zather. They are shackled to, and therefore power, Zarek the Silent King's personal vehicle, the Dais of Dominion. So that wraps up the Necron Shards of the C'tan that I've completed. The Void Dragon being the most spectacular and fun on the tabletop, and honestly wherever people see my collection, they're always drawn to that model. The Nightbringer was a disappointing build and paint, and I made a lot of mistakes, but was very happy with the creativity I used on the base. And the Deceiver, which was a positive experience, and I'm enjoying stippling and painting cloth at the moment. I will probably look to do some rogue space marines such as Blade Guard veterans or librarians to practice. Of course, based on the timing of the last few videos, I was expecting Games Workshop to release a new version of the Nightbringer and or the Deceiver any day now. Personally, I'd like to see them introduce a new C'tan, as there's plenty of others in the lore. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe as I continue to chronicle the collecting, constructing and creating.